Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Sports Minute here on the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. Ishmael, the show just started here for tonight. Adam just got a hair transplant, so we're pretty much identical twins. Crispy Bacon, Sarge, and the Asian Skip Bayless. But Crispy Bacon, how we doing?
Doing good, not too bad. How's everybody doing tonight?
Definitely interesting day in football, but we'll just kind of see what happens. But Sarge, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Thank you for having me on the show.
We are glad to be here, but Isaiah I don't know what he's going to say tonight, but how are we doing?
Doing absolutely horrible. That's how I'm doing tonight after the game that I hyped up for basically a year, and my Georgia Bulldogs just crapped the bed. So, I didn't want to be on the show tonight, but Chris and Sarge and John just dragged me onto the program and said, "You are not going anywhere." So here I am.
Well, that's kind of how it works. If you want us to do that with how my Longhorn season has been over for 5 or 6 weeks, you have to do the same. But folks, it's open forum tonight. Definitely is some college football playoff announcements. I think coming tomorrow, but the final couple of teams head to the college football playoffs. It's always great, though, to see an Isaiah potential sports meltdown when you see him going, "Oh, glory, Georgia. Oh, glory, Georgia." But then, folks, that was this morning. So if you have any questions, you can let us know. Ishmael saying, when's the show starting? Well, it's now. And Ishmael, just because I'm hosting one time tonight doesn't mean you can start not roasting me, but liking to tease or poke the bear when it comes to my football teams. Because we know Ishmael does like to do that. But Chris, after today, kind of what your thoughts on the college football playoffs, or how do you think this could match going to this year or next year?
Well, I know the committee likes Alabama and, what they've been doing, this season. And I feel like they're going to be in the mix for the college football playoff. I'm just not sure about Cincinnati. They played a really good season. They're still undefeated. I just feel like they're going to be left out.
Definitely, we know how the playoff committee is similar to a toddler. You cannot change their mind despite the evidence being right there. But Sarge, I'm not sure how many games you watched today, but you saw what happened today with Georgia and Michigan and many other teams. What was your, biggest takeaway of championship Saturday?
My biggest takeaway, Georgia played the way how Isaiah had the Georgia G backwards earlier today. That's how they played with that. So I can see Alabama leapfrogging Michigan. Michigan's going to stay where they're at. Then it's going to be Alabama, Michigan, unfortunately, Georgia, then Cincy. But I wish they could follow the FCS playoff format. That would be awesome for this college football. It'll be awesome.
Definitely would be a lot better considering there could be, a 10, 12 team playoff in a couple of years and certain teams going into different divisions. We know how Isaiah feels about Georgia, but with Georgia and some of the other teams that happened today, what do you think was the biggest takeaway with either Georgia, with their offense, or necessarily with Michigan and other teams?
My biggest takeaway from today is that I'm going to go on record right now and blame the sports media for the Georgia Bulldogs loss, because the sports media literally fed all week long about how, Alabama's terrible. Alabama's not going to do anything. Alabama will be lucky to even to come to 21 points closer to the Georgia Bulldogs. And Nick Saban said after the game, they read all of that stuff, and they read all of those doubts by the sports media that were doubting them and saying Georgia was going to run away with this football game, and they fed off of it and made them even more angry. And Alabama's already talented enough. You don't need an Alabama team that is playing pissed off coming into the football game. So I'm not blaming the whole reason why Georgia lost on the sports media, but when I looked at this game, I said my mindset going into this game was, I know a lot of people were saying how Georgia was going to run away with Alabama, and I said not so fast. Until Kirby Smart slays the dragon, until he topples Nick Saban, I'm going to proceed cautiously, and I'm going to be skeptical that he will be able to do it. And, he's choked again in a big game, and the defense didn't come to play. It seemed like the defense felt like they already were locked into a playoff spot. So they were like, oh, why not? Why even show up for this SEC championship? Let's get ready for the playoffs and let's not get hurt. And I also think that Kirby Smart really coached scared. I thought there was a lot of moments in that game where he should have been more aggressive. Like 4th and 15, when you're down 14, you're in Alabama territory. Why on earth are you punting? Like, at that point, you're going to lose the game anyways. So you might as well just go for it instead of punting. And then after that, Alabama scores another touchdown. So those are, I think, the reasons why Georgia lost. And the defense really disappointed me. I thought this was the best Georgia defense that we've seen in a long time. And they didn't come to play. And it looked like all game long, that vaunted defensive line was running in quicksand all game long. Like they could not get after Bryce Young whatsoever. I thought that they would be able to manhandle Alabama's offensive line, which struggled mightily against Auburn. And Alabama's offensive line literally looked like an NFL offensive line versus Georgia's defensive line, who looked like a high school junior varsity team offense or defensive line going up against an NFL offensive line. So it was just so pathetic. I hope Georgia's able to bounce back from it, and it's not like a soul-sucking type of a loss. But in terms of the playoffs in general, happy for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan that he finally broke through and won the Big Ten. So, like Sarge, I think Michigan's going to stay at number 2. I think Alabama's probably going to leapfrog from 4 all the way to number 1. And then I think Georgia goes to 3 because I don't think that the committee wants to see Alabama-Georgia rematch in the semifinals. They would rather have that for the national championship. So I think it's going to be Alabama at 1. I think it's Michigan at 2. I think it's Georgia at 3. And I think Cincinnati will be 4. So I think, those will be my top 4.
Definitely a lot of surprises, though. I think, before we get to Georgia for me or other things, what we're seeing in the tight end for Georgia, this guy can really play the football. We saw earlier in the game when they're already down, you didn't really have any timeouts. You kept feeding him the ball. He's a guy that can block, he can throw, pass, and catch. And that's a guy that I think can have a bright NFL future. But for today, the one thing that just doesn't make sense is that one thing they talked about with Alabama, I don't know if it was a stat, correct me if I'm wrong, something about them struggling running the football or something like that. But today, for some reason, the Georgia's running attack defense wasn't able to stop the run. I don't know what you attribute that to mentality, defensive play calling. You believe the media hype that gets to your head and you have that crazy type ego. I don't know. But for Bama, and I don't like saying the A word. It makes me sick to my stomach. But I said this before the season. Alabama is going to be just fine. What separates the great coaches, the winning coaches from, you have potential, but you never really got far, is being able to adjust. A bunch of offensive line went into the draft. You lost your 2 receivers, the top receivers, to the NFL, along with your offensive line. You bring in another quarterback yet again. It's the same thing to Alabama every couple of years. And Bryce Young now is 44, 45 touchdowns, nearly breaking the mark. Was Kyler Murray had a total of 48 touchdowns, and I believe his final year, Joe Burrow had about 60. That's counting the playoffs and everything combined. So Alabama's going to be just fine, and that kind of proved it today. And that's why, again, I hope they lose. I hope they don't get the national championship game. But it just shows continuously, despite we don't like Alabama continuously to win, to lose all your offensive linemen, they're bringing a new quarterback and all that. I think that's great. But moving forward, though, for Georgia, you're going to have to move on. And I know it's it's only been a couple hours. Think about it. Who would they play? Was it next week or the week after?
In a month. January 1st week.
Who would they? Okay, so I'll be really. I don't know who they'll be playing in a month. I guess it depends on who would they be playing in a month, or is that not set yet?
It's not set. It will be set tomorrow morning at 9:15 p.m. Pacific time, which you guys can catch on ESPN.
That definitely, I'll definitely have to be looking at that. Definitely would be interesting though. And Justin talks about Isaiah Baylor winning, right? I mean, Baylor back. Baylor. I don't know. I mean, their basketball team did something last year.
No, they did.
I don't know.
They beat Oklahoma State in the Big 12
They
championship. They won by 1 inch, pretty much. Like it,
dude, that was like
Reminded
that
me
was
of
like that
the Rams Titans game.
You read my mind here. That's just like the Eddie Lacy almost touchdown, where literally, like on the hair on the chin, I could barely have. That's how close it was. So I mean, Baylor, their basketball team, they did really well last year. Now their football team, they're back after all those other issues and getting back to the Big 12.
Even if they don't make it, I think this helps their program.
Definitely their program. Mm-hmm. I think making those steps is important, but not too many steps too quick. But again, it's heading in the right direction in the I don't know about this year, how they're doing basketball wise, but how they went last year, what the football program is getting back to kind of what it was with RG3 and Josh Gordon potentially in the past, but they're finally getting to where they need to be. And Justin, that he probably did. That's why he's not in the NFL. Not a great running back, but we're not here to talk about any of that. Baylor did great. Michigan, congrats, Isaiah. They won the Big Ten, but moving forward, despite them winning the Big Ten, what do you think would rather be their biggest asset or kryptonite if they do not go as far as they could?
Their biggest kryptonite is if they get matched up against Georgia, because what Michigan likes to do is very similar to Georgia. They're basically like the Georgia of the Big Ten. They like to run the football. They have a great offensive line, a great defensive line that likes to get after the quarterback and stop the run. But their secondary is not that great. And like Georgia, they will get exposed. And when you look at Georgia, if they play Michigan, I think Georgia's going to win because I think Georgia has the better offense. I did not like what I saw from Michigan today in the first half against Iowa. I know they put up 42 points, but three of those touchdowns came in garbage time when the game was pretty much over at that point. So when it was in crunch time or in real time, it was only like 21-3. And Iowa is not really that good. They have a really good defense, but their offense is terrible. So I think that for Michigan, for them to want to get to the national championship, they should want to play Cincinnati or they should want to play someone else other than Georgia, because I think that Georgia just matches up really well with them, and Michigan doesn't match up really good with them at all. So if they match it with Michigan, then even though I want to see that matchup because, both of those two teams I picked to go to the college football playoffs, and I'm very happy they're in the college football playoff, but I think that Georgia will be the better team and will ultimately prevail because they have a better offense than Michigan, and they have a better running attack than Michigan. Because if you shut down Michigan's rushing attack and you force their quarterback to have to throw the football, like we saw in that Iowa game, he's not really that good if he has to put the team on his back and lead them to a victory.
Now you say that with Georgia's offense. Now, who would they put in the game? He has Stetson Bennett in today, being coached by the backup or starter JT Daniels. So if they somehow play Michigan, whoever else they play, once we find out in the morning, how do you game plan? Who's the starter? Based on what happened today, all the blame is not all on him. But the fact is with Alabama is that any mistake, just one, is going to cost you the football game. He had a turnover. Defense couldn't do anything. So how do you game plan? What do you do if you're Georgia? JT Daniels is the guy now. He had a good story, Stetson Bennett, but now it's kind of like it's time to set that aside and maybe bring back JT Daniels.
Well, I think with the Michigan game, I think you could ride with Stetson Bennett and still win because Stetson Bennett is a quarterback that his rushing attack is really good, and he's very mobile. He's very mobile. So Michigan's front, they like to attack the quarterback. So if you have a quarterback that is just standing there flat-footed like JT Daniels, who has no mobility whatsoever, even though he's got a great arm, that could hurt you. I think you could ride with Stetson Bennett and you could win, because I don't think Michigan, if you shut down the running game, I don't think their passing attack really scares me. But you need JT Daniels for Bama. I've been saying that for the entire season. I'm going to say it again. You need JT Daniels for Alabama. And if you don't start JT Daniels against Alabama, it's going to be the same result like we saw today and like we saw last year when Stetson Bennett started for the Bulldogs against Alabama. It's going to be the same thing. Like Stetson Bennett, he's a good quarterback, don't get me wrong, but he's a game manager. He needs to have, a great field position. He needs to have a great running game. He needs to have be able to have the lead in order to manage to pull the victory out for you. JT Daniels, if you're behind by 2 touchdowns, he can just get you back just like that. So it's got to be JT Daniels against Bama. But I think for Michigan, if you do play Michigan, you could ride with Stetson Bennett. But if you play Cincinnati, you need JT Daniels, because we saw that, I think it was a couple years ago, or it wasn't last year, but it was the year before that, where Georgia played Cincinnati in the bowl game, and they were down like 17-10, and they put in JT Daniels, and he rallied them back. So you got to put in JT Daniels for either Cincinnati or for Bama. But if you're playing Michigan, I think that would be a little bit more easier than if you're playing Alabama or Cincinnati.
Especially, you can't make any mistakes against Alabama. But if you're Georgia, I just not too sure about that. Anything can happen. But speaking about Heisman, I mean, if we're being honest, who are really top for your top quarterback? Justin talking about whoever, talking about Kenny. Like, if we're talking about top for your top for Heisman candidates at this point, there's only Bryce Young. Is there really any other competition at that point for the
not
Heisman
right
candidates?
Not right now. I would have thought Spencer Rattler would probably get in the mix early on in the season, but not now.
That's the crazy thing about college football, especially when now that he was supposedly going to take this team to multiple wins, potential Heisman candidate gets benched and potentially may enter the transfer portal. His backup lights it up, or at least that's better than what he does. So anything can happen. Justin says Spencer Rattler might go to UCLA. I don't.
He could.
He could.
I mean,
but I'm gonna have to just say now. There's no way he goes to UCLA. But if you're a college team, whatever, and let's say there's 3 or 4 options, or 1 or 2 that he wants to transfer to, what type of offense is he gonna go to?
I think the finalists for the Heisman's next week, isn't it?
Right, but since unfortunately he's maybe they have a Heisman Trophy for the backup quarterbacks, maybe he could win that. But if you're talking about for him, like next year, what team in y'all's or Sarge or Crispy Bacon or Isaiah, like what type of team or offense would he go to? But at the same time, what team would want him based on what happened in the Texas game? Wow, his backup basically took his job.
I want to hear what Sarge has to say, because he was laughing at the comment about Rattler going to UCLA. So Sarge, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Why are we even talking about Rattler? He's just a Malibu Most Wanted character in the college football. I don't know who he is. I do know who he is, and I don't think he's all that great. That's how I think of him. I can see him easily going to USC because he'll be used to the offense, because lo and behold, guess who's there? Lincoln Riley, his former coach. Coincidence? I think not. Probably it's just coincidence to be on that one. So you guys were talking about the Heisman. No one's talking about Kenneth Walker or C.J. Strudge, Matt Carroll, or Kenny Pickett. And one person who is a wild card in my pick is Aiden Hutchinson. He has 12 sacks this year. Let's get some defense in this Heisman ballot. This is like the MVP in baseball, having a pitcher win the MVP in the Cy Young. This is why I have a hard time following college football. And Spencer Rattler, I don't think he is going to be successful in college or in the NFL. That's where I'm at on that one.
Bold prediction.
I don't think I can really disagree with that one. I think when you look at Heisman, like you talked about, the people that vote on the Heisman candidates are just like the college football playoff committee. Quarterback, receiver. And that bothers me because there's so many great running backs and so many great defenders that we've seen over the years. Like what guy Alabama, I think Alabama, another guy, he had 12, 14 sacks on the year after missing all of last year. Why don't we have those type of guys? Why can't it be a little bit of a mix like you're talking about, Stars? Because if you have it on one side, I don't blame people for not wanting to watch as much college football or these awards starting games because, oh, great, here we go again. It's going to be quarterback. It's going to be a running back, and maybe it's going to be a receiver, and it's just the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, I see a comment that Chip Kelly will make him a star. That is fake as Chip Kelly. Oh, yeah, Chip Kelly's just fake all around. Even Brian Kelly, his fake accent, they're all fake. All the Kellys are fake.
Yeah. That's the same guy that had Rosen, I believe, and Rosen said he would be all that, and I'm not sure what. Oh, he's with the Falcons with his fourth or fifth team, despite being drafted in 2018. So no, Chip Kelly is a fraud in college football. Chip Kelly was a fraud in the NFL.
True.
Maybe definitely I could see maybe a new head coach sometime soon. I'm not sure like who would want to go to UCLA because who knows who's interested. We always see coaches say, "Hey, I'm not interested in things happen." But no, Chip Kelly is not going to make anybody start. Chip Kelly is not a coach in the NFL. I think Isaiah had a cough, so if you want to take a sick day, that is okay. That is no problem at all. But Mac Jones in the NFL, I do want to talk about this one. I know it's open forum for sports. I didn't get just to talk about Monday Night Football. So many people, when the Saints beat the Bucks, when they were 4-2, oh look, the Saints are going to be this. But at what cost? You're 4-2. Now you're on a 5-game winning streak. Dallas beat them. I believe who was it? Amari Cooper. Somebody was out due to COVID or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
So Dallas has theirs got to come back. Dak is doing what the Cowboys were doing. They're 8-4 or something on the season. They're
8-4, yeah.
Ahead. Now the Saints, after this season, they're in rebuild mode.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, your top receiver is going to be gone. He's out. He's been out for the whole season. Kamara with his large contract. You have your star defensive lineman, large contract. He's a veteran that's getting much older. You drafted an offensive lineman. You don't have a lot of money. From Drew Brees last year to now rebuild in 2022, I'm not sure how the Saints and this team really kind of unfolds to that really at all.
It actually, see, I believed in the Saints earlier this season because Jameis Winston has actually turned things around. He had 14 touchdowns compared to 3 interceptions. And having that year off, staying behind Drew Brees, I believe the Saints could have made run against the Buccaneers with that one. Also, against the Thursday night football game, we're forgetting that half of the offensive line for the Saints is down with injuries. Half of the wide receivers are out as well. Same with the defense. I don't think they're in the rebuild mode. They just need to put some little pieces in, and it'll be good. That's how I feel about the Saints. And that's coming from a Carolina Panther fan. I mean, come on.
Dude, I had faith, but I'm talking about after Jameis Winston, their season's over. Like, you don't have a lot of money. You're bringing back on, like, a cheap deal next year. But there's no way the Saints are going to – like, they could do something, some damage with Winston and healthy offensive line. But again, you can't compete with Tampa Bay. Despite a receiver being out in the NFL, Tony Brown and a couple other players, it's still the Bucks. It's still the Saints being the Saints. With Jameis Winston, yeah, they would have a really good chance of maybe like a wild card team in the playoffs. But I'm talking about after the Jameis Winston injury, not before. Before, yeah, they were doing pretty decently. He was doing really good. Not being a turnover machine, not having another 30 for 30 ESPN special was working out. I'm talking about after that. People were, oh, yeah, the Saints beat the Bucks. That's great. But now you don't have your starter. And it's starting to kind of unfold. And I'm not sure if you bring back Winston for a cheap deal next year based on not having a lot of money. And it worked out. Like you said, starts 14 touchdowns, 3 picks. Strap for cash, bring him back for a cheap deal. Receiver, who knows where he's going to go? Like, what? Like, how does that really?
Well, and then too, you have, I can't remember the quarterback's name. You know, who started for the Saints this past week. He's now
Chase
hurt
Young.
with a hand. Yeah, Chase Mail. He's now hurt with a hand injury or finger injury. Now you're probably going to result with Simeon. That's not good.
Believe me, as a former Broncos fan, nobody wants that, nor the Jets do. But with Justin saying Big Ben said this last season, I think I'll say this just real quick because I'll let y'all have the floor. This wasn't a surprise. He should have retired after the 2020 season. It's not like, oh, I've never won a Super Bowl. That's haunting. I get that monkey off my back. You won with Bill Cowher. You won with Tomlin. You've been to multiple championship games. I don't understand the point of trying to come back in your 18th season. You drafted a running back in the first round, which doesn't spell, hey, we're going straight to the Super Bowl. Some of those throws that Big Ben made, like, I'm sorry, where his eyes shut. Was his Jameis Winston with the Steelers? I'm really inherently confused. This guy has been beyond past his prime. And there's nothing wrong with retiring after the 2020 season. You have 2 rings, multiple championship appearances, 3 or 4 Super Bowl appearances, won 2 of them. I don't see the point. Why coming back this season? We always love to relinquish the past or try to, let's bring this show back. Let's bring this show back. Let's bring Big Ben back. Let's have all those memories. But yet now you lowered his contract salary against the cap. They're not doing well. I'm not saying it's all on him, but those throws he's making, that's not really good. So I'll leave it the floor to Sarge first. But obviously this doesn't come in as a surprise, but after this season, how do you think the Steelers are going to be approaching in terms of, you brought in Haskins, like Justin said about him being a beast at Ohio State, but now there's going to be a lot of weird situations with the Steelers.
One, I don't remember the last time a good quarterback actually made it very far in the NFL from Ohio State. 2, Big Ben should have been gone a couple of seasons before the 2020 season because he's in it for himself. That's where he's at. He's in it for himself. He wants all the glory, and like when he does get injured, he makes seems that the injury is so much worse than it was. Like he got his leg like injured one year, and he said that he almost died. I don't know, which wasn't true, and all that stuff. He has a lot of injury. I don't stand Big Ben. I like Philip Rivers better than Big Ben. That's where I'm at on this one. They need to put Duck in, Hodges in. Haskins is a washout. I don't know. I hate the Steelers. I hate Big Ben, or hate's a strong word, but I dislike them all. I just dislike them. So that's how I feel about the Steelers and Big Ben.
I think Jeff Hodges is getting ready for
I would like to know if you're one, you don't have to answer at all, but you're a Panthers fan. How do you hate the Steelers? Is there some like multiverse football universe or something, or what happened there? Sorry.
I think it's the whole. I don't like Big Ben, and he makes me hate the team. Let's put it that way.
Oh, fair enough. Okay.
And the Bears, I've always hated the Bears, except for Mike Ditka.
Totally understand that. And Christy, when he says some people just don't want to give it up, John, I agree. But then that's where it hurts, not just you,
Eli Manning.
The franchise. Pride is a huge killer, not just in football, but literally anything. I can be a very prideful or stubborn human being, but yet that can hurt people like friendships or other things. And that's what's happening with Big Ben and the Steelers. You are literally like I agree with you, Sarge. Couple of seasons ago, he should have been done. They could have had time to move on. You signed him to another 1-2-year deal, a big fat contract that's bigger than Peyton Manning's forehead. And where does it go for the Steelers? It literally goes down the toilet after using a fiber pill. It just flushed down. So I think the Steelers had been in denial for a while. They're going to be experiencing the 5 stages of football grief. But Crispy Bacon, I'll ask you though, for the Steelers, Father Time has been catching up to him for a while, and the Steelers should have moved on. But what do you think the Steelers should do this offseason, or how do you think they're approaching it based on their money issues or against the cap?
Yeah, I thought Doug Hodges was good when he was with when he was in Pittsburgh. I don't think he was in the Canadian Football League this season. I don't think his team's in the playoffs, so might as well just bring him back. But if they don't want to do that, it's not a good quarterback class this year, it looks like. And it's not really a good free agent class either. So I think you're just going to try to have to, to find someone. I don't know.
Do you bring in, obviously, I say you bring in a veteran quarterback, but yet again, it wouldn't really do a lot of help. Like, maybe.
Aaron Rodgers, I'm just playing.
Don't let you dare bring it in, Chris. But I thought of Minshew, maybe not in terms of he's not going to really do anything for you all, but maybe it's something. I'm not saying that's a good option, but like you said, in reality, the Saints are probably going to pick up Winston for another cheap deal because it's worked out this year, 40 touchdowns and 3 picks. So now that Winston could really be off the market, then you don't really have a lot of options and you have to settle, and you shouldn't settle. But the Steelers have to do it because they're the same super. Have you not learned from Minnesota? When it doesn't work out, you don't, hey, let's just give you another contract. Let's just keep feeding this. Let's keep feeding this, and hopefully something will happen. But Justin was saying thoughts on the Eagles quarterback situation. Crispy Bacon, I'll let you go first. Jalen Hurts is out. Gardner Minshew comes in. Minshew media. I don't know if that's obviously not a thing anymore. How do you think this pans out for the Eagles, and more importantly for however their season pans out?
If Minshew can win, I think all of that conversation is back, and some teams going to have a good quarterback because he seems to pull out victories every time he comes in. As far as Hurts not starting, that's great. As far as the NFC East goes, so anything that can help since we're not playing this week, the Cowboys. So
definitely it helps in the NFC East, but I think it helps them. I'm not saying that, oh my gosh, it's going to change your season. Like, no.
Oh.
But I mean, Minshew or Hurts, despite Hurts has a smaller body of work, I would probably pick Minshew, Sanders. I know the weapons that they have are one of the receivers is sponsored by Butterfingers because he doesn't know how to catch the football, but that's neither here nor there. But I'll just read Justin's last comment before we kind of continue on. Is that I believe he said the Lions draft Kenny Pickett number 1 overall. I don't think the Lions even know what they're going to do next year. Like he said, Jared Goff is our guy. Have you ever give false hope? Jared Goff's our guy. We believe in you. We love you, Jared. Behind the scenes, This is the Florida family we're talking about. You're 0-10-1. You're probably going to lose every single game. Here we talk about the Lions losing every single game. This is not the first time. The Lions don't know how to. They're the same team years ago that drafted a couple of tight ends when they really needed offensive line. So,
what do we give them partial credit? Do we give them partial credit because they tied?
I mean, okay, fair enough. They tied in the game. I'll give you that's true. They tied in the game.
Just had to throw that out there.
They just have a winless
and you're not
record.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, which one is better or worse? I know it sounds that's probably like a really off question. What is the better losing team? This Lions team, if they lose every single game, or the Browns team that went 0-16 or 0-16?
Or what about the 08 Lions?
Yeah, like which one is he better? I say better because that's not really saying much, but if that really makes a whole lot of sense.
I would say the Browns because I think that following season they only won 1 or 2 games after that with that one head coach, and the head coach he blames something else and it's like, dude, you're full of self. It's like Stu Jackson, I think his name is, or Sue Lou, something like that. Jackson. They all have like brothers because all their first names rhyme, but I think the Browns had it worse because they're the most snake bitten team in the NFL. That's how I feel.
I mean, they're the same team. They were within 3 points in most of their games, but we're not going in the past here. This isn't Marvel with the new movie. But, though, folks, this is obviously off topic, but if you're an NFL fan, there's a new football movie coming out talking about Kurt Warner's story. If you somehow don't know football or anything else, recommend checking that. But we're getting back here. Christy says the Lions are a poorly run team, in my opinion. Christy, that is a nice way of saying it. When they talk about censorship in terms of saying words you shouldn't say in a show, that is exactly what that's a censor bleep. That is a nice way of saying a joke.
That's why I didn't pick the Lions, because I wouldn't have nice words.
Yeah, exactly. This is a sports show. The Lions are the Lions. I don't know. I would not. I mean,
they're not breaking kneecaps. They're not breaking.
Yeah,
kneecaps.
they're not breaking kneecaps at all.
They're shining off shoes and kneecaps and cleaning up. But no, Detroit is Detroit. So who knows what's going to happen from there? But I think someone else said about big or anything else. But who knows? I would love to see it though.
I want to go back to this question, this interesting question from like up there in the comments. I believe it was from either Ishmael or Justin, who said, which team is right now on the fringe of the NFL playoffs that you guys think could make the playoffs? What do you guys think? Like a fringe team that's like not really in it right now, or closing in on a wild card spot, or like the division that you guys think could make the playoffs?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Well, I want to I was gonna say Denver, but I don't know if they're like in a wild card spot or not. But if I have to go with the team, I'll probably go with them because, like I told John last night in a call that we had, they're probably like the most weirdest team I've ever seen. Like they play great and win the games that they're not supposed to win, but then they play terrible and lose the games that they're supposed to win. So you don't really know which Broncos team will like come to play on a weekly basis. So I probably go with them because they're 6-5. I mean, they are only one game back of the AFC West. Take that as how you want to take it, but I believe they're in the final wild card right now in the AFC, and that's a really big surprise considering I think most of us thought that Vic Fangio was going to get fired after this season if he didn't make the playoffs.
No, I hope he gets fired.
Well, we talked about that with the Bears after Thanksgiving, so.
I mean, he should have still been fired either way. I mean, their season's over. Like they're just delaying the inevitable. Matt Nagy will be fired, and I will do a celebration show on my channel for the firing of Matt Nagy.
So, see, Isaiah, man, I think you need some better glasses, man, and read and see what the Denver Broncos schedule is like. Even though they're playing the Chiefs tomorrow, they still have to play the Chiefs at the end of the season. On top of that, they have to face the Bengals, the Raiders, and the Chargers. My pick is going to be the Colts because they're on fire, and look what they did against the Buccaneers. That was a last-second field goal. Why the announcers were in a love fest with Tom Brady and so forth. It wasn't Tom Brady; it was Leonard Fournette who was doing all the groundwork and everything else. So I'm picking the Colts and the Broncos. Man, I saw them in preseason, and no.
Definitely not. And you're not beating the Chiefs. Teddy Bridgewater and Mahomes. That's like saying Tom Brady and Mark Sanchez. That's like saying Drew Brees and I don't know. That's not a comparison. Somebody just said the Dolphins. No.
Speaking of Teddy Bridgewater, I was actually on the field level, and I was actually next to him. That guy is small. Like Drew Lock, he's built. He's big. Believe it or not. Is it Chardol? Hi, how you doing? I just saw the comment. But like Teddy Bridgewater, just seeing his body and everything, he is a small guy. He's thin and so forth, and I just don't know how he can stay in NFL. It baffles me, but it's awesome at the same time.
To answer Adam's question, I'll let obviously y'all or take the panel also is that Adam says, will the Lions get their first win against the Vikings this week? I will let Stearns go first on that one.
Oh. It is either going to be against this. It's either going to be this week or next week. Because I don't see them winning against the Falcons at all. I don't see them winning against. I'm going to say next week against the Broncos. That's what I'm going to say for the Lions' first win. I can't see it this week.
Definitely. I mean, I'm not saying Minnesota is this team, but this is Detroit. This is the Ford family. As long as the Ford
Get that
family
guy in
team,
square four out of here. Get that guy in square four
'cause
out
if
of here.
I had
Isaiah
to
loses again.
If I had no, please stand for the MI6 and Coast to Coast national anthem. Put your hand over your heart and let's sing it all together. 1,
Hey,
2,
Isaiah,
3.
how about them Bulldogs, baby?
Butts in 6, Braves in 6, and Georgia in 0.
That was a different college he was rooting for, Callan, because I don't recognize that G anywhere. So
The Packers.
Yeah, it's literally a knockoff of the Green Bay Packers logo, I think, too.
Hey, do you know the last time that Georgia beat Alabama was 2007, and Alabama's win the series 41-4? By the way, Isaiah.
So you mean to tell me the last time that Georgia beat Alabama in a meaningful game was when I was in 7th grade? Oh my goodness.
Bro, I was 9. I'm almost 24 in like a week and a half. Like, what is this?
God, you're making me guys feel old. Jeez.
Oh.
So Isaiah, how about them Bulldogs, baby?
Yeah, how about them Bulldogs? How about the sports media riling up Alabama?
Dude, okay, first of all,
bravo.
Excuses are like vegetables on Thanksgiving platter. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody wants to hear it. So now, if I had to face the music with my Longhorns, and rightfully so, or my other teams, then you have to face the music just like crispy bacon. I don't know
Just
about
like
that.
the rest of us, Isaiah.
Exactly. So be like a vacuum and suck it up.
But it's going to be continuous because Isaiah likes every single team that has like a player that he falls in love. Then he's all of a sudden a fan of that team. He's a fan with Sonny the Dolphin. Look what happened to Sonny the Dolphin.
You mean Snowflake the Dolphin?
Wait, what?
I had a little Ace Ventura in my mind. So
definitely that can happen. But Callan, do you have any
So
roast
again, Isaiah,
sets or
how
things
about
you
them
want to say?
Bulldogs, baby?
How about the Bulldogs, Isaiah? Did they play today, or do we need to follow a police report for a missing person? I'm confused. Do we need to call the
No, they
police
played.
report because
They played.
Oh, that's right. They lost against Alabama. Oh.
So once again,
gosh.
Isaiah, how about them Bulldogs, baby?
You have to face the music. How do you think I faced the music? Do you know how painful it was to face the music about my Longhorns? But guess who faced it? So the fact is, if you're going to talk all of that trash to us, when our teams inevitably do what the Avengers did and disappear half the time, then you also have to face the music and also screw you, John Walker.
See you in the national championship. That's what I'll say.
Oh,
Who won the national championship game, Isaiah?
remember, he has like 30 teams. It's
Well,
like
yeah, that is true.
and that's just in college football, mind you.
And weren't you the one in the chat that didn't know what a pug was?
No, he
Well,
thought the penalty box was the red and yellow.
The thing
Oh, I
about
was here for that one. We know what the penalty box is.
well, here's the thing. Callan, oh my gosh, how many people are gonna come in and roast me tonight? It's like a glory to Georgia.
That's what you get for posting that video before anything happened.
With the backwards G. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
he was in distress. That's
Here's
what it was.
Isaiah, every single San Diego team lost this weekend, but you still whine and moan because you haven't seen any of your teams succeed. That's your reminder that it's hard being a San Diego sports fan. Get on my level.
My college team hasn't won anything since 2006. 15 years. I was 8 years. Blockbuster was relevant. That's the last time the Longhorns won anything. But you don't hear me being, oh, poor me, or pulling something from the note. Who knows?
Hey, the Gophers haven't won nothing since the 70s, so.
Sorry, fellas. San Diego hasn't won since John F. Kennedy was president in 1963.
Hey.
Okay, Kyle's got us beat.
So.
Yeah.
But again, Isaiah, before I go, how about them Bulldogs?
Also, Junior Seau
Wait, now
is
you
not
got a
invincible.
Michigan hat on? Whoa. You got a Michigan hat now, Isaiah?
Well, hey, this was a
Dude, this is
birthday
Isaiah,
gift
though.
given to me by my friend, my good friend Stephen Wang, who's in the comments section. So, Stephen, thank you so much for that. But I'm not a Michigan fan. I like Jim Harbaugh, and I'm happy that because he was my.
Wait, but a video last year in 2020 contradicts that with a photo of the quarterback saying, "This is Michigan's year." He's like Lamar Jackson with Lamar and Patrick Mahomes is on him. So that says otherwise. Your Honor, you're guilty. And Maury says the lie detectors came back and said that was a lie.
What's up,
What's up?
You know, he looks like the floating head in Pee-wee's Playhouse, you know. That's all you
Don't you. Dude, I plan on sleeping tonight. Don't you dare mention anything about no floating heads or anything. The only floating head I want to see would be if I used to play the game on the Wii. That's it.
No. Well, don't it look like it? Like the floating head of Pee-wee's Playhouse, the genie or whatever his name was? The secret word of the day is...
You're scaring us. We're not going to sleep tonight.
You're on mute.
But I guess Sarge knew, everybody knew. But like Christy said, Isaiah didn't know that Junior Seau was one of the greatest linebackers of all time. And he's a Hall of Famer. Isaiah thought he was a bench player.
I've learned a lot about Isaiah over this last week.
So this is what happens when you like so many teams that you just lose reality.
Says the kid that likes Fruit Loops on his baked potatoes.
Which reality is worse, Isaiah's sports teams or Thanos being delusional?
Oh, my sports teams, because you could just count on them to choke every single game. I mean, look at Georgia, best team in the nation. Oh yeah, we're not going to show up in the biggest game of the year. How about that?
So should I sell my stock or should I keep it in Georgia? Exactly. So if you're gonna talk continuously about my Longhorns, fine, but at least keep the same energy. Hey, I can find out where you live and give you a prank white elephant for Christmas gift.
No, some bubble gum.
You never know. I can find out. So you just never know. I got somebody that knows where you live.
So who do you think are the top 4 teams now? Did you guys cover that before we got on, or?
Yeah, but well, for me it was Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, and Cincinnati. There's not going to be any debate. It's going to be those 4. It's just like
you're putting Michigan or you're putting Bama 1
after they beat Georgia by.
Well, okay. So here's my argument: is how can you leapfrog a Michigan team that's number 2? So to me, Michigan's got to be 2. And then I can make an argument for Bama being above Cincy and then Georgia being 4. I just don't understand how Michigan can't be number 1 after the whooping they just put on Iowa.
Well, yeah,
Iowa's not that great of a team.
Well, yeah. I get Iowa, but I get it. I mean, but it's the championship team, so they're the second best team in the Big Ten. I mean,
I think they'll just go because
you could do that. You could definitely do that. I could see that happening. The reason I just put Bama at 1. Michigan at 2 was because I just don't think the committee would want to have a Alabama Georgia in the first round. Like who?
No doubt.
So that's not going to happen. So it's Georgia. I think will either be at 3 or they're going to be at probably at 4, depending because they're not. There's no way you're going to have a Alabama Georgia rematch in the first round.
No, there's no way.
Notre Dame have any say.
If you're putting Alabama 1 and Georgia 4, they would match up.
Yeah.
Because 1-4 matches up, 2-3 matches up.
Yeah. So does anybody think Notre Dame has any kind of say to be in the top 4?
Hell no.
Well, I mean, ask Morgan Freeman according to Isaiah.
No, because what has happened in the past with Notre Dame being in any type of championship game or in this playoff series, they get smoked.
Yep,
they do.
But think about it, with the leadership and the calmness voice of Morgan Freeman, anything is possible. This is the same guy that mentored Batman. So he just reminds you that anything can happen.
Yeah, and look what happened to Batman. He broke his back.
I just saw a comment from Josh, I think it was. Why do you think Baylor needs to be number 4? They were what, 10th? Or were they lower?
They were number 9, I think.
Number 9?
They
So
were
there's no way they could jump 5 teams to be number 4, in my opinion.
See, what would happen if Oklahoma State would have won this game? Cincinnati would have been out. 100%.
Right.
Really?
Yeah, because Oklahoma State was ranked number 5. They beat a ranked team. And the committee is all about strength of schedules, not by winning and losses. It's all about the money.
No, I get that part, but I just don't get how you take out an undefeated Cincinnati team, though.
Well,
Because again, the college football playoff committee is like a toddler. You cannot change their mind. They are very.
Oh yeah.
And it's like a soccer mom too. You cannot change their mind.
They're worse than the MLB voters for the Hall of Fame. They're worse than that.
Yeah.
If I agree with Sarge, if Oklahoma State would have won, no matter what Cincinnati did, I think they would have been jumped. So
what if Bama would have lost today? Then what do we think?
Well, then that's when the massive chaos would have ensued. Like that's if Alabama would have lost, then you would definitely have a real debate about who's going to be the 4th spot. Are you going to put in a two-loss Bama or a Notre Dame or a?
I think you put in Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think if the way it played out, if Bama would have lost, Notre Dame gets the 4th. And I do agree with Sarge though. Notre Dame's not showing up on any playoff game that they've been in.
No, I don't know how you can say that they can be in a playoff picture. I don't think they're that great of a team.
Well, I mean, tomorrow you can look at it 2 ways because we all know it's going to expand. So you can look at the 4 that's going in this year. But if it were to expand, who would all be in it?
Because the thing is, they are already going to expand it, and then they're already going to expand it even more after that. So if it was like 6, 7, 8 teams or whatever, then yes, Baylor would be in. But 4 teams, I definitely don't see that. But folks, I believe that we do this show for about an hour every week, Chris?
Yeah, about.
Okay, then we'll do it a couple more minutes, and then we'll wrap this up. And Casey King says no way on Notre Dame, and so I agree. I don't think Baylor goes so far. And Christy Wilson loves to start his hashtags, #screw you, and then puts in the name. It started on one of our podcasts we had on for the MSC for the and I said screw you, John Walker, and then I said screw to each villain to the Marvel show we reacted to, and she started a hashtag for Nick Saban, or said screw you, John Elway here somewhere. I mean, they're about to sell the team, so who who honestly cares, but I'll ask, I think you, Big B, and Mr. Rene before we kind of wrap this up, is that I don't know if you got a chance to even look at the scores or your biggest potential takeaways from the games today.
What was that, John?
I don't know if you had a chance to check any of the scores or anything today, but what was, your biggest 1 or 2 point takeaway from some of the games from today?
I think the biggest takeaway I took is that Georgia didn't seem to show up after the first quarter once they got the lead. And after that first score, I think somebody on the radio when I was listening to it said that the team that scored the first time in the championship game of that title game has lost like the last 6 championships. So it didn't look good for Georgia from the beginning. And I think Oklahoma losing today Oklahoma State losing. I think it was a big shocker to me.
That game was just like the Tennessee and Rams Super Bowl of many, many years ago. I love Steven's comment before going to final thoughts and all that. He says, "Hey Isaiah, I've heard all this talk about Georgia beating Alabama, but will they even beat Michigan? So we'll leave that there. Let Isaiah maybe get some tissue. I don't know, depending on what happened with Georgia today. Maybe he could be sponsored with one of the clinics companies. I don't know. Anything about that can happen. Again, we talked about Heisman and all of that. But next round day, before we kind of wrap this up, I don't know if you get a chance to watch any of the games or not, but kind of what your initial thoughts on some of the championship games that happened today in college football?
Well, I worked today, so I caught a little bit of it on TV, and the last I saw it was tied up at 17, and then I looked up like an hour later, and it was like 41 to something. Like, geez, what the hell happened to Georgia?
Wow.
They always shit the bed in these championship games, so I don't know why I picked them. And Michigan winning, Jim Harbaugh finally getting this Michigan into the playoffs, so that was kind of big for them. Congrats to Harbaugh, the next Bears coach, by the way. Write that down.
Ooh, bold take. Good job messing around. Putting that out there.
Wow.
Yeah, bring the khakis. Bringing the khakis to Chicago.
I mean, it's not too bad. Again, like I said, Dave, I was going to have a celebratory show whenever this happens, officially when the Bears finally fire their current head coach, Matt Nagy, and hopefully their GM and Ryan Pace. So that could definitely happen at all. But I believe we had one more comment from Steven that we wanted to read, but he is now on the show. What's up?
What's up, guys? It's been a tough evening for me because watching it as an Ohio State fan, just the day unfold, we knew there would have to be absolute chaos for Ohio State to get in. I'm going to turn off my camera real quick. I mean, you guys got the idea. I still got my colors flying around being an alumni of the Ohio State University, but like you knew there had to be chaos for us to get in, and it didn't happen. Like what happened in the morning, that had to happen. Baylor beating Oklahoma State, that happened. But after that, all of the top four played well enough to stay in the top four. So it's the same top four teams, different order. With that being said, I'm going to keep it real simple. My MI6 college football playoff top 7 is Alabama number 1 because you dominated number 1 at a neutral site by 17 points. I mean, it was not as close as the score indicated. They won by 17, but this game was over by, the start of the fourth quarter, that pick 6. So you dominated on a neutral site more than Michigan dominated Ohio State. So I got to give them number 1. And it's not like Alabama was number 8 heading in today. They were number 3 and they dominated number 1. So I think that warrants enough to be able to jump 2 spots. And then number 2 has got to be Michigan because I really debated between these two. They was really close. Michigan beat a pretty good Iowa team 42-3. I would say a deceptively good Iowa team that fought back in their season. But I got to give the nod to the team that beat the best. You know what they say? To be the best, you got to beat the best. And this was no fluke. Georgia didn't lose by a field goal. They didn't lose by a touchdown. This was utter domination by Bama. Number 3, I'll go with Cincy because I got to respect the undefeated record. And they played Notre Dame on the road. So once again, they had a dominating win on the road against Notre Dame. It's not like they played Troy and Minnesota State all year long or something. They played some legit teams and they won those games. They earned their right to be number 3. And I'll have to put Georgia at 4. I don't think they lost by enough, and they did quite enough to get knocked out. And just the comment about Oklahoma State, I would not agree with Oklahoma State getting in over Cincy or Georgia today had they won, because I think Cincy proved that they belong by beating a Notre Dame team on the road by 11. Again, not a fluke. They didn't win by a field goal or touchdown. They won by 2 possessions. So that's going to be my top 4. At number 5, I'd put Notre Dame, 6 Ohio State, and then 7 Baylor. Baylor with a really impressive win. But if we're asking ourselves honestly, who's a better football team? I'm taking the Buckeyes over the Baylor Bears. And last note, guys, is I've been against college football playoff expansion because don't you just love this debate about like who's in? Like arguing between 4 versus 5 versus 6 seems infinitely more interesting than like 12 versus 13 versus 14. But here are some of the matchups we would have gotten in a 12-team playoff system. So you would have had Ohio State playing Utah still in the Rose Bowl, 6 versus 11. You probably would have had like a Pittsburgh team matching up against Notre Dame. That would be a great game. And then what's great about it is that we know there's a huge gap between 1 versus 12 and like 2 versus 11. But under a 12-team system, the 4 teams will get a bye. So actually, the first round would play out quite competitively, just like it does in the NFL. I still like 4 teams better than 12 teams, but that's a little bit of devil's advocate for you guys. And I'll shout out the 6-team format as the best. I still think 6 teams is great for a playoffs, and giving just the top 2 teams, because usually, the championship is won by the number 1 or number 2 team in the nation. So giving the top 2 teams that definitive advantage really rewards hard work all season long, because I think that's what's special about college football, right? Over MLS soccer, MLB baseball, or NBA basketball, is that every game counts. Like every regular season game is just astronomical. It's the biggest game yet. It's the first real test, quote unquote.
Definitely appreciate your comments, Lobo. Before we end tonight's show and final thoughts, what were your kind of your initial thoughts on some of the games today, and not just talking about the Georgia-Alabama SEC championship game?
I'll tell you this. I thought it was a really good – I thought Alabama just gave it to Georgia if you saw that game. But I kind of thought the Michigan and Iowa game, that was kind of a blowout. Everybody could just fall asleep on that game.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely came some surprise, especially like you talked about the Oklahoma State. That was that close. Just we talking about the Tennessee and Rams Super Bowl that a long time ago. But maybe Eddie George still needs a football therapist, but we'll leave that there for tonight. But folks, I guess before we go, we'll just do final shout outs or final thoughts. So Steven, I'll go with you first. Do you have any final shout outs or thoughts on today's show?
Hey, man, just a lot of gratitude for what Jim Harbaugh's got going there at Michigan and the rivalry between Michigan and Ohio State. I know we got our butts humiliated last week and everything, and they've scored a huge victory at home in Ann Arbor at the Big House. But I just want to express my gratitude towards Ryan Day and Urban Meyer into building Ohio State into the program that it is, such that losing to Michigan is such a big surprise. I mean, 8 in a row, it was a really special run, 29 straight Big Ten games. Ohio State in one calendar year scored revenge against not only Clemson, but they claimed revenge against a very good Purdue team, which had dominated Iowa on the road and Michigan State at home. That was a team that blew out one of our championship hopeful Buckeye teams. Obviously, you want to come home with a championship. That's the goal of every team, whether you're UTSA, Ohio State, the Detroit Lions, or whatever. Every team wants to win a championship eventually. And it's just sad that we can't be the number 1 team out of the 128 teams in college football. But just an immense amount of gratitude to some of the seniors that are going to be leaving this program behind, and like Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. You guys played your hearts out. And to CJ Stroud, so many great things ahead for you, man. And how about that young man, Bryce Young, Aiden Hutchinson, 2 Heisman candidates? You got to feel so great for these guys, because here's a couple of guys like in Bryce Young, and then also the Michigan football program. It wasn't looking that great in the middle of the year. People had counted these teams out. And now not only are they going to get into the playoffs, they're going to have 2 Heisman finalists who earned their due respect. And just past 2 weeks, man, wild. The two of the biggest rivalry games in sports. Michigan upsets Ohio State as a considerable underdog. Alabama upsets Georgia. You just got to give it all out to Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh, who were doubted throughout the year. They came in and they proved that they belong. And a lot of gratitude that we're able to have these seasons as it is, with the pandemic still going on, and just wishing for all of these players' safeties, these coaches' safeties, and their future success in their respective careers.
Definitely, we want all success, except for one of Isaiah's takes when he pulled up the Jaguars logo, because the Jags are still the Jags, but Mr. Crispy Bacon. Then what are your thoughts on tonight's show and everything else? We had laughs, birds, farts, all that happened, but what are your final thoughts on tonight's show?
Oh, it was a good show. Thanks to everybody for coming on, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. Tomorrow morning we have morning tailgate covering this week's NFL games, and then between the ropes after that. So thank you guys all for tuning in.
Of course, thank you all so much for tuning in. It was definitely a great show here. But Isaiah, despite some of the things were said from all of us, what are your final thoughts on tonight's show?
It was a great show. Thank you to all the fans for tuning in. Thank you to Loro, Big B, Sarge, Mess Around Dave, even Steven coming in like last minute. I mean, I think this might be like a record of how many people we've had on Sports Minute at the same time. So it was great to break a record here tonight. Man, it really sucks that Georgia lost today, but hey, we're still in the playoffs. It's all good. Go to the playoffs, go play Michigan or go play Cincinnati, and then give me that one more chance.
Guaranteed elimination, Isaiah. One of your 75 teams is going down.
Bama. It'll be so sweet.
Michigan or Georgia, I don't care. One of them's going down.
Georgia, give me Georgia. Beat Michigan.
Georgia's going to be number 2.
All right, cool.
Isaiah.
Michigan goes down. I'm cool with that as a Buckeye fan.
But Mr. Ron Dave, I know you came in late, like with some of Isaiah Sports 6 finally being correct with Georgia, even though it was a good day since they lost. But it's always good and fun when we teach Isaiah, never personal. But what are your final thoughts on tonight's show?
Hey, it's great coming on. Thanks for having me last minute. I really wanted to come on and hype up my Bulls, but we're not talking about basketball, so yeah, good talk.
Hey, you can have the floor to hype up the Bulls right now if you want.
Yeah.
I could, but I lost my train of thought.
Definitely very interesting there, but Big B, despite some of things that were said before the show, we had a lot of birds, farts, picking our noses, a lot of good laughs, talking some all across the board. But what are your final thoughts on tonight's program?
No, thanks for having me in towards the end here. Like Chris said, join us in the morning, just a few hours away. Myself, Lowro, Chris. We break down week 13 and give our picks, and who knows what else we'll talk about. But, thanks for all the viewers. Thanks for you guys filling in for A's. So it was a great show.
And Big B, Skull. I know I'm wearing a Buckeyes jacket, but still, Skull.
I hope so, but I'll tell you right now, I'm picking the Lions to win. It's going to be a close game.
What? This is Detroit.
Detroit almost beat Minnesota. Detroit almost beat Minnesota.
We'll leave that for after the show because I can't believe the stuff that Big B just said. Whoever he's employed by, please select him for a random drug test.
I know Dalvin Cook is out again, Big B, and I know that it's going to be in Detroit, but I don't think they're going to be as lucky as last time with
I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. Don't get me wrong.
And then forcing a fumble and then a touchdown and 2-point conversion. I think not that many things will go right for them. So I'm picking Minnesota 24-17.
I think it's going to be a close game. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it's going to be a close game, though. It's going to be close, but I'll take Minnesota by a touchdown.
It'd definitely be a close game. They still have Madison, their backup. Dalvin Cook being injured again. It's not like I said he'd be injury prone. Some people laughed at me, but that is not the point here. We're here for laughs. If you don't want to laugh, watch SNL. That's not the point. Sarge, thank you so much for doing tonight's program. But what are your final thoughts on tonight's program, despite all the birds, farts, and all the laughs that we had tonight?
That Isaiah's going to become an Alabama fan after this season. That's all I can say with that one. I just want to say,
God.
I know. I mean, he has to add more. He's like Thanos, He has to have all the stones or something like that. But
no. He's going to be a Cincinnati, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State fan.
But we forgot to talk about Oregon because they make great passes to the other team. But other than that, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it. And, go Panthers.
We call that elite ball placement for definitely elite ball placement for the wrong team, if you want to call it that. But, folks, thank you all so much for tuning in. Adam was sick tonight, so we kind of came in the last minute. But we thank you all for watching. And we will see y'all next time.